information, maybe check the information, maybe you don't.
Right.
I guess it also might produce a kind of uniformity in coverage. Is that a fair thing to say?
Yes, it does. I mean, there's competition between the papers, but by and large, they get the same stories, and you'll see the same quotes, and I think a lot of that. Well, on one hand, they're good reporters, and they're all looking for the stories, but if you're on the other side, you want to make sure that you're treating everybody fairly.
Right.
So,
does that proximity also mean that New Jersey media in the State House are less likely to be kind of hard-hitting in terms of our political leaders? They're just too close to them?
I don't think so. I can see how one might think that's possible, but I have a lot of respect for the reporters and journalists in this state, and I can tell you, having been on the other side, that you don't get any breaks from them. I think that they will treat you fairly because in a sense, it's almost like being a coworker. You see the same people in the cafeteria, in the hallway, whatever. So, but they're not going to compromise any of their journalistic integrity.
What about in a situation like with the former governor, when he announced his impending resignation, right, because he, as he described himself, he was a gay American. Quite frankly, I mean, easily a year or two before that, that was like the worst kept secret in the state. I mean, so many people knew about that. As some newspaper reporters, actually, I had on the show, talked about it afterwards. Was that the kind of thing where the media knew about it, but they just said nothing doing? This is private, maybe private.
Right.
We're going to keep away from that?
I think they knew about it. It wasn't confirmed, and I believe they didn't see it as news until he made it news by resigning. Mm-hmm. And I believe they tried to make it news by connecting the dots, which they were unable to do until he himself made the announcement. But that's an interesting issue. I've been doing some research into the whole issue of privacy and when is it appropriate to look into the private life of a public official. Sometimes it's just sensational or voyeuristic, but at other times there's a legitimate public policy reason, to do that. And it's a tough thing it's not a black and white area. Right. Each case is separate. But,
well, in this case, I guess maybe one of the connections was that he appointed his supposed lover to a position in Homeland Security, and that, I don't know if that was used as an excuse to cover the story more, because apparently the position he had wasn't really that important, as I understand.
He was a Homeland Security
yeah.
advisor, and as you said, there were plenty of rumors out there, and the press was aggressive in reporting them. I just think they were unable to put all the pieces together, and they would not write a story that was just rumor or conjecture, and also that really wasn't news yet. I think it became news because of his announcement, and also because he was being threatened with a harassment lawsuit. So,
right. Let's talk about some of the other media in the state. Radio.
Yes.
At this point, radio in the state, and correct me if I'm wrong, has not experienced the degree of consolidation as it has in other places.
That's correct. When I looked at ownership patterns, radio is one thing. There's still a lot of small, independent, either radio stations or small groups of radio stations, and I think radio is almost like a forgotten media in this state. It's when I worked in communications, it was a great way to get your message out, to get people on to all of these small and mid-sized stations, which are always looking for guests. And we spend a lot of time in our cars in New Jersey.
Yeah.
And, there was a statistic I saw, and I don't remember the exact number, but someone actually calculated how much the average New Jerseyan spends sitting in traffic, and people tend to put the radio on. We have other options now. You have satellite radio, iPods, and things like that, but I think a lot of people listen, and they listen because they'll get traffic, they'll get weather. And,
mm-hmm. Yeah. Doesn't radio suffer in part from the same problem that TV suffers from, in that a lot of New Jerseyans are going to listen to New York radio stations or Philadelphia radio stations, and they're not going to get great New Jersey coverage.
Yeah, that's true, and it's similar to what you were saying about NJN and News 12. There's work and there's content on these other stations for the people who are interested in getting it. We do have one large station, NJ 101.5, which is available throughout the majority of the state. I don't think they reach the entire state, but and they've been, they've been controversial, but they've also been influential, going back to
for the Florio campaign.
To the Florio,
right.
They were, led the tax revolt, and also, if you remember when Megan Kanko was kidnapped and killed in Hamilton Township, they were influential in leading to the establishment of Megan's Law. So.
Where do you think we could go in the state to really improve our media situation, to make the media work more in terms of really serving the public interest? So we use radio more? Is radio a meaningful outlet as far as that concerned?
Yeah, I think radio is there. I think there's cable television, programs like this. There's, throughout the state, there's, municipalities have their own access stations, and I think we should make greater use of them. You could establish a dialogue with newspapers, with publishers and editors, but I think it's difficult because in the end they're owned by larger corporations, and how much leeway they have to make decisions, within the state. I'm not sure. Yeah.
Do we have a kind of a, I guess, chicken-egg situation? Because a lot of people will say, well, New York media doesn't pay enough attention to New Jersey, but at the same time, New Jerseyans don't seem to pay that much attention to their own state. That we do gravitate towards New York and Philadelphia in terms of our interest. If we had a more active New Jersey media, do you think that would change? That would serve a function of increasing our identity as New Jerseyans? I
think it might, and I think you're correct in that, our identity, not just through the media, but in a number of ways, is determined by New York. You'll go to a theater here and they'll say it's Broadway quality theater.
Right.
I've even seen hair salons like New York Style or New York Pizza, whatever.
New York Delicatessens, yeah.
And you don't see the opposite taking place. And you mentioned Bruce Springsteen before. He's one of the few. We have tremendous number of artists, entertainers from New Jersey who've been successful, but Springsteen's one of the few who's actually been successful. I think because he's from New Jersey, he's made being in New Jersey, and at least in his early years, a big part of his appeal, of his music, of his lyrics. So
there are the Sopranos.
That's true too.
Yeah, which certainly has had an impact. I don't know if it's good or bad in terms of a New Jersey image.
Right, but people, and I know New Jerseyans love to watch them and look for familiar sights in the programs and things like that.
Very quickly, we only have a minute left. What are you working on now? What's your major focus now?
We're looking ahead to the 2008 presidential election. We think it's going to be an exciting year for New Jersey. We're moving the primary up to February, so New Jersey will be more of a player, and we're conducting or putting together details on a number of forums in order to gauge what New Jerseyans want in their next president. We're going to be doing some television shows, some panel discussions, focus groups, and from all that we're going to develop a list of priorities for New Jerseyans and get them to the candidates for the campaigns and hopefully hear back from them and then post it on our website.
That's great stuff. Maybe we could work together on some of that in the future here.
Yeah, we'd appreciate that. We look forward to working with you.
Richard, thanks so much for coming.
It's been a pleasure. I enjoyed it.
And if you'd like more information about this or any other Carpe Diem program, you can write us at the email address on your screen, carpediem@mail.montclair.edu, or call us at 973-655-5158. For Carpe Diem, I'm Bill Berlin, and thanks for watching.